The coffee cup trembled in my hand as I approached table 7, the weight of my double shift settling into my bones like cement. 16 hours on my feet, and the diner's fluorescent lights had begun to flicker in that nauseating rhythm that always triggered my migraines. The smell of burnt grease and cheap cologne hung in the air, clinging to my uniform along with the desperation of another Friday night that wouldn't cover this month's rent. "More coffee, sir?" My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. He didn't look up at first. Most customers didn't. I was part of the background noise in their lives, the invisible hand that refilled their cups and cleared their messes. But when he finally raised his gaze, something electric shot through me. Dark eyes, sharp as obsidian, cut through the diner's haze. They didn't just look at me. They assessed, calculated, measured. His suit probably cost more than my yearly salary, midnight black and impeccably tailored to broad shoulders. No off-the-rack department store purchase. Custom. Italian, maybe. The kind of quality that whispered old money and danger in equal measure. He wasn't alone. 2 men flanked him in the booth, one checking his phone constantly, the other scanning the room with mechanical precision. The larger one at the door hadn't taken his eyes off the entrance since they'd arrived. 4 men in total, all radiating that unmistakable energy of predators in a room full of prey. "Your hand is shaking," he said, his voice low and smooth like aged whiskey. Not a question, an observation. I bit my lip. "Sorry. Long day." A ghost of a smile passed over his face. "Sit." It wasn't an invitation. It was a command. The man across from him immediately stood, vacating his seat without a word. I hesitated, coffee pot still gripped in my white-knuckled hand. "I don't think my manager would— Your manager won't mind." He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. "Marco, make sure of it." The man by the door nodded once and disappeared toward the back office. My stomach knotted. What kind of influence did this man have that made everyone around him move like pieces on a chessboard? Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I lowered myself into the vacated seat, placing the coffee pot on the table. Up close, I could smell him. Expensive cologne with notes of sandalwood and something darker underneath. His fingers were adorned with a single ring, a heavy gold signet that caught the light when he reached for his cup. "You look exhausted." His eyes never left my face. "How long have you been working here?" 3 years. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "And before that?" I shifted uncomfortably. "College, for a while. Until I couldn't afford it anymore." "What were you studying?" "Engineering. Mechanical." Something flickered in his eyes. Interest, maybe, or amusement. Interesting career change. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could catch it. "Not much of a change. I'm still fixing things that are broken. Just turns out to be mostly the ice cream machine now." For a moment, silence settled between us. I became acutely aware of the rip in my left pocket, the coffee stains on my apron, the chip in my fingernail polish, all magnified under his unwavering gaze. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emily." I didn't ask for his. Something told me I didn't want to know, that names had power, and his would carry more weight than I could bear. He studied my face for a long moment. "Do you believe in fate, Emily?" The question caught me off guard. "I believe in rent that's due and bills that keep coming." That ghost of a smile returned, slightly wider this time. "Practical. I appreciate that." He reached inside his jacket, and I flinched involuntarily. His smile deepened at my reaction as he pulled out not a weapon, but a sleek black wallet. From it he removed $500 bills, placing them on the table between us. "For your time," he said, sliding them toward me. My throat went dry. "That's too much for coffee." "It's not for the coffee." Before I could respond, the bell above the door chimed, and the atmosphere in the diner shifted immediately. His bodyguards tensed, hands moving subtly toward hidden weapons. But the man himself remained perfectly still, only his eyes darting to the entrance. A young couple wandered in, oblivious to the tension, laughing about something private between them. The moment passed. The guards relaxed incrementally, but remained vigilant. He turned back to me. "I have a business proposition for you, Emily, the mechanical engineering student." "Ex-student," I corrected. "No one is ever an ex-student of life." He leaned forward slightly, I'm hosting a gathering tomorrow night. Private event. I need additional staff, and I'm willing to pay significantly more than... His eyes flicked to the greasy countertop. What you're earning here. $500 for a conversation. How much for a night's work? My rent was overdue. My sister's medical bills were piling up. The practical side of my brain screamed warnings, but desperation has a way of drowning out common sense. What kind of staff? I asked cautiously. Nothing complicated. Serve drinks, clean up, stay invisible unless needed. He tilted his head slightly. Your specialty, I imagine. The casual cruelty of his accurate assessment stung. I had perfected the art of invisibility, a ghost drifting between tables, noticed only when someone's cup was empty. And the pay? $2,000. Cash. For one evening, my heart stuttered. $2,000 would cover rent and put a dent in my sister's medical debt. It seemed too good to be true, which meant it probably was. Why me? The question slipped out, heavy with suspicion. His smile widened, revealing perfect white teeth. Let's call it intuition. The man who'd gone to speak with my manager returned, giving a subtle nod to his boss. Whatever conversation had happened in the back office had clearly gone in their favor. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. He wrote an address on a napkin, his handwriting unexpectedly elegant. Ask for Alessio at the gate. So he did have a name, Alessio. It rolled off his tongue like silk, but felt dangerous to even think. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over both the money and the napkin. Every warning my mother had ever given me flashed through my mind. Don't talk to strangers. Nothing comes free. If something seems too good to be true. But my reality was crushing me. 50-hour weeks that barely kept the lights on. Collection calls I'd stopped answering. My sister's voice, strained with pain she tried to hide, telling me not to worry. My fingers closed around both. Smart choice. Alessio stood, adjusting his immaculate suit. The men around him rose in perfect unison, like a well-choreographed dance. Don't be late, Emily. As they filed toward the exit, one of the guards leaned down and whispered something in Alessio's ear. He paused, turning back to fix me with that penetrating stare once more. One question. For curiosity's sake, I waited, pulse pounding in my ears. That broken lock on your manager's office door. Did you fix that too? My blood ran cold. I'd repaired the lock last month when my manager complained about it sticking. How did he know? What else did he know about me? I did, I admitted, unsure why I was being honest with this dangerous man. Alessio's expression remained unreadable, but something shifted in his eyes. Calculation. Reassessment. Interesting. Then he was gone. The bell above the door, the only evidence they'd been there at all. I sat frozen, $500 bills clutched in one hand, a napkin with an address in the other, and the distinct feeling that I'd just made a deal with a devil I couldn't possibly understand. The next evening arrived too quickly. I'd spent the night alternating between counting the money, confirming again and again that it was real, and researching the address. It belonged to a massive estate in the wealthiest part of the city, a neighborhood I'd only driven through, never expecting to enter. Standing at my bathroom mirror, I hardly recognized myself. I'd used some of the money to buy a simple black dress that could pass for cocktail attire or uniform, depending on how I carried myself. My usually wild hair was tamed into a neat bun, my hands scrubbed clean of the perpetual coffee stains. For the first time in months, I didn't look exhausted, just terrified. The taxi dropped me off at imposing iron gates, where a stone-faced security guard verified my name against a list. The driveway seemed endless, curving through manicured gardens before revealing a mansion that belonged in a movie, not real life. Lights blazed from every window, and I could hear the soft pulse of music as another guard directed me toward a service entrance. Inside, controlled chaos reigned. Staff in black and white hustled through a massive kitchen, carrying trays of appetizers I couldn't pronounce. A harried-looking woman thrust a tray of champagne flutes into my hands without introduction. Main ballroom. Keep glasses full. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't enter the West Wing under any circumstances. She adjusted my collar with impersonal efficiency. Go. I stepped into a world I'd only seen in movies. Crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light over a room filled with people who wore wealth like a second skin. Women draped in jewels that could pay off my student loans with a single earring. Men in suits that cost more than my car, laughing too loudly at jokes that weren't funny enough. The air smelled of expensive perfume, aged liquor, and the unmistakable scent of power. My hands trembled slightly as I balanced the tray, weaving between guests with practiced invisibility. 3 years of waitressing had taught me how to become part of the furniture, present enough to serve, invisible enough not to disturb. I kept my eyes downcast, only raising them to scan for empty glasses. "There you are." The voice sent a jolt through me, nearly upsetting my tray. Alessio materialized at my side, dressed in a tuxedo that made yesterday's suit look casual. Up close, in better lighting, I could see the details I'd missed in the diner. A thin scar bisecting his left eyebrow, the flecks of amber in his otherwise dark eyes, the way his presence seemed to bend the room around him like gravity. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't come." His voice was pitched low, for my ears alone. "I need the money," I replied honestly, keeping my professional smile fixed in place as a guest plucked a champagne flute from my tray. "Direct. I appreciate that." He guided me with a light touch at my elbow, steering me toward a quieter corner. "How are you finding my home?" His home. Not a rented venue, not a business location. The realization sank into my stomach like a stone. What kind of man lived in a place like this? "It's impressive." My eyes darted to a painting on the wall that I recognized from an art history class. An original, not a print. Worth millions. "It suits my needs." He studied me with that same calculating look from the diner. "Are you comfortable with your duties this evening?" I nodded. "Pour drinks, stay invisible. I'm good at both." "Yes, I imagine you are." Something in his tone made me look up, catching an expression that vanished too quickly to interpret. "But I have something else in mind for you now." My grip tightened on the tray. "I don't—" "Nothing untoward," he interrupted, a hint of amusement coloring his voice. "Please, Emily, I'm a businessman, not a monster. The kind of businessman who travels with armed guards and makes managers tremble?" I wanted to ask, but self-preservation kept my mouth shut. "Follow me," he said, taking the tray from my hands and passing it to a passing server without looking at them. "There's someone I'd like you to meet." I followed Alessio through the crowded ballroom, acutely aware of how conversations hushed as we passed. People nodded respectfully, some with fear poorly disguised as deference. Others watched me with naked curiosity, wondering who the plainly dressed woman was that commanded Alessio's attention. We passed through a door guarded by one of the men from the diner, who stepped aside without a word. The noise of the party faded as we entered a wood-paneled study that smelled of leather, books, and cigar smoke. 5 men were gathered around an enormous desk, their conversation stopping abruptly at our entrance. "Gentlemen," Alessio said, "give us the room." They filed out without question or hesitation, their eyes sliding over me with varying degrees of curiosity and dismissal. When the door closed behind them, the silence felt oppressive. "Do you know who I am, Emily?" Alessio asked, moving behind the desk. I swallowed hard. "I have suspicions, and yet you came anyway." He gestured to a chair across from him. "Please sit." I perched on the edge of the seat, my back rigid. $2,000 is persuasive. "Is that all it takes to buy your services? 2,000? He didn't wait for my answer, opening a drawer and extracting a small remote. "I've been watching you for some time." Ice filled my veins. "What?" He pressed a button, and a panel in the bookshelf slid open, revealing a wall of security monitors. One of them showed the diner where I worked. Specifically, a clear view of me at the counter, filling salt shakers after closing. "Why?" My voice came out as a whisper. 6 weeks ago, my head of security noticed something peculiar. A pattern of small establishments in your neighborhood experiencing break-ins. Nothing major stolen. Cash, mostly. Small valuables. But the interesting part? He leaned forward. No forced entry. No alarms triggered. Just locks that seemed to cooperate. My heart hammered against my ribs. I kept my expression carefully blank. Then 3 weeks ago, my property on Oakwood Street was accessed. My safe there, containing items of sentimental rather than monetary value, was opened. Nothing taken, but the violation was noted. His eyes never left my face. The security footage showed a figure in black. Small, female, skilled. I don't know what you're talking about, I said automatically, but the denial sounded weak even to my own ears. Don't you? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The same week, you paid your sister's medical bill, $3,000, in cash. Quite a sum for a waitress, wouldn't you say? My stomach dropped. You've been investigating me. I make it my business to know who enters my territory. He closed the panel with another press of the button. Your skills are unusual for someone in your position. I don't have any special skills, I insisted, even as my mind raced through escape routes, the door behind me, the window to my left, both likely guarded. Let's not insult each other's intelligence. Alessio stood, moving to a painting on the wall. With practiced ease, he swung it aside, revealing a wall safe. Locks, mechanisms, puzzles. They speak to you, don't they? You understand their language. I remained silent, watching as he spun the dial with quick, confident movements. The safe door swung open, and he extracted a small velvet bag. My father believed that true security came not from locks, but from people's ignorance. The best place to hide something is where no one thinks to look. He returned to the desk, emptying the bag's contents onto the polished wood surface. A key. Old, ornate, and made of what looked like solid gold. Do you know what this opens? He asked. I shook my head, though my fingers itched to hold it, to feel the weight and balance, to understand its purpose just by touch. Neither do I. His admission surprised me enough that I looked up, meeting his gaze. It was my father's. He died before telling me what it unlocks or where that lock might be. His final game, perhaps. Or his final test. What does this have to do with me? I've had experts examine it, locksmiths, historians. No one can identify the mechanism it was designed for. He pushed the key toward me with one finger. I'm curious what you might see that they missed. Against my better judgment, I reached for the key. The moment my fingers closed around it, I knew it was special. Heavier than it looked, with an unusual distribution of weight. The teeth pattern was complex, with subtle variations in depth I could feel by running my thumb over them. It's old, I murmured, turning it over. But not antique, custom-made recently, within the last decade. Alessio's eyebrows raised slightly. How can you tell? Machine tooling marks. They're minimal, but they're there. I held it up to the light, examining the decorative portion. The ornamentation is designed to mislead, make it look older than it is. I continued my examination, falling into the familiar patterns of analysis that had once made me the star of my engineering program. The weight distribution is intentionally off-center. That means the lock it opens probably requires both insertion and pressure at a specific angle. My fingers traced the unusual grooves on the stem. And these? They're not just decorative, they're positioning guides. This key needs to be inserted, pressed upward at approximately 15 degrees, and then turned counterclockwise. When I looked up, Alessio was watching me with open fascination. You determined all that just by holding it? I set the key down carefully. It's just observation and basic mechanical principles. It's extraordinary, he corrected. My experts spent weeks analyzing that key and came to no useful conclusions. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. I knew I'd revealed too much, confirmed his suspicions about my abilities. What do you want from me? I finally asked. Direct again. He smiled, and this time it seemed genuine. I have a proposition for you, Emily. One that could solve your financial problems permanently. I'm not a thief, I said quickly. Evidence suggests otherwise, he countered smoothly. But that's not what I'm proposing. I have many legitimate business interests that could benefit from someone with your particular insight into mechanical systems. Security consultation, quality control, problem solving. You want to hire me? I want to offer you an opportunity. He reached into his jacket and produced an envelope, sliding it across the desk. Inside you'll find an address and instructions. Tomorrow at noon. Come alone. I didn't touch the envelope, and if I refuse, his expression hardened almost imperceptibly. The authorities would be very interested in the string of burglaries in your neighborhood, particularly the one at Oakwood Street. which belongs to a very prominent citizen who could ensure maximum penalties. The threat hung between us, clear and unmistakable. However, he continued, his tone lightening, I prefer to incentivize rather than threaten. Inside that envelope is also $10,000. Consider it a signing bonus. $10,000, enough to pay off my sister's remaining medical bills and give us breathing room for months. The temptation was physical, an ache in my chest. What would I have to do? I asked, hating the weakness in my voice. Tomorrow you'll find out. He stood, signaling our conversation was over. For tonight, you're my guest, not staff. Enjoy the party. The money is yours regardless of your decision. As if summoned by an invisible signal, the door opened, and one of his men appeared. Marco will show you out. Alessio extended his hand. It was a pleasure meeting you properly, Emily. His handshake was firm, his skin warm against mine. For a brief moment, something passed between us. An electric current of recognition, perhaps. Two people who understood how systems worked, who could see the mechanisms behind the facades. Then he released me, and the moment passed. Marco led me not back to the party, but through a series of corridors that eventually opened onto a terrace overlooking illuminated gardens. The night air was cool against my skin after the warmth of the house. Mr. Castellano asks that you consider his offer carefully, Marco said, handing me the envelope Alessio had prepared. A car will take you home whenever you're ready. I stood alone on the terrace, the envelope heavy in my hands, filled with more money than I'd see in months of waitressing. Whatever game Alessio Castellano was playing, I was now a piece on his board, and I had the sinking feeling he never lost. Block 3. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay awake in my small apartment, the envelope on my nightstand, casting a shadow that seemed to grow with each passing hour. The $10,000 inside was real. I'd counted it 3 times, running my fingers over each bill as if expecting them to dissolve into dust. They didn't. They remained stubbornly, temptingly real. The address in the envelope was for a location downtown, in the financial district. A high-rise I'd passed countless times but never entered. One of those gleaming glass towers that housed law firms, investment banks, and corporate offices with names that were just combinations of wealthy men's surnames. By morning, exhaustion had settled into my bones, but decision had crystallized in my mind. I would go. Not because of Alessio's veiled threats, though they lingered in the back of my thoughts like a storm cloud. I would go because for the first time in years, someone had seen me. Really seen me. Not the invisible waitress, not the college dropout, but the person underneath who understood the language of mechanisms and puzzles. That recognition was almost as intoxicating as the money. I dressed carefully in the only professional outfit I owned, black slacks and a navy blouse I'd bought for job interviews that never panned out. My reflection in the mirror looked both familiar and strange. Less desperate than yesterday, but more uncertain. The financial district hummed with midday energy when my taxi dropped me off at the address. Men and women in expensive suits streamed in and out of the revolving doors, all purposeful strides and important expressions. I clutched my worn leather bag closer, feeling conspicuously out of place despite my best efforts. The security desk in the lobby was manned by 2 guards who looked more military than civilian. I gave them my name with a confidence I didn't feel. Ms. Reynolds, the taller one said, checking something on his screen. 15th floor. Mr. Castellano is expecting you. The elevator was mirrored, forcing me to confront my nervous expression from every angle. What was I walking into? A job offer that could change my life, or something darker? Alessio Castellano had resources, power, and an interest in my questionable skills. None of that added up to anything that felt safe. Yet here I was, rising toward whatever he had planned. The elevator opened directly into a reception area decorated in tasteful grays and blues, with a sleek desk manned by a woman whose expression was as polished as her surroundings. Ms. Reynolds, she greeted me without asking my name. Please follow me. We passed through glass doors into a corridor of offices. The walls were lined with art that even my limited knowledge recognized as valuable. Modern pieces, mostly. Splashes of color and emotion that seemed at odds with the sterile corporate environment. She stopped at a door at the end of the hallway, knocked once, and opened it without waiting for a response. Ms. Reynolds is here, sir, Alessio stood at the window, his back to the door, silhouetted against the midday sun. The office was massive, corner suite, with views of both the river and the city skyline. Unlike the reception area, this space felt personal. Dark woods, leather furniture, and shelves lined with books and curious objects. It reminded me of the study from last night, transplanted into a corporate setting. "Thank you, Caroline," he said without turning. "That will be all." The door closed behind me with a soft click that somehow sounded final. For several long moments, Alessio remained at the window, and I remained frozen just inside the doorway. "Do you know what this building was before my company acquired it?" he finally asked, still gazing out at the city below. "No," I answered, my voice sounding too loud in the quiet room. "A bank. One of the oldest in the city." Now he turned, his dark eyes finding mine immediately. "The original vault is still in the basement, 16 inches of steel and concrete, considered state-of-the-art in its time." He gestured to the chairs positioned in front of his desk. "Please, sit." I moved forward on legs that felt wooden, hyper-aware of his gaze tracking my movements. Today, he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. No tie. The top button of his crisp white shirt was undone, revealing just a hint of collarbone. The casual details seemed intentional, a carefully constructed illusion of approachability. "You came," he observed as I sat. "I'm pleased." The money was persuasive. I echoed my words from last night. But so was the threat. A smile flickered across his face. Honesty. Refreshing. He took his own seat behind the imposing desk. "Did you bring the envelope?" I nodded, retrieving it from my bag and placing it on the desk between us. "Keep it," he said. "Consider it a down payment." "On what exactly?" I asked, leaving the envelope where it was. "You said you had a proposition. I'm still waiting to hear it." Alessio leaned back in his chair, studying me with that now familiar intensity. "Officially, I'm offering you a position as a security consultant for Castellano Holdings. Competitive salary, benefits, the usual corporate trappings." "And unofficially?" His lips curved upward. "I have a puzzle that needs solving. One that has frustrated experts for months. I believe you might succeed where they failed." "Because I've broken into places I shouldn't have been," I said flatly. "Because you have an innate understanding of mechanical systems that can't be taught." He leaned forward. "Your criminal activities are a symptom, not the cause of my interest. You turned to theft when your options narrowed, but that's not who you are at your core. You don't know who I am. I know more than you think." He opened a drawer and removed a file folder, thick with papers. "Emily Reynolds, 26 years old. Raised in Oak Ridge by a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep you and your sister housed. Exceptional grades in mathematics and sciences. Full scholarship to Westlake University engineering program." My mouth went dry as he continued reciting details of my life with clinical precision. "Dropped out during your 3rd year when your sister Lily was diagnosed with lupus. Your mother passed away 6 months later. Heart attack, likely stress-induced. You've been working service jobs since, trying to support your sister and cover medical expenses insurance won't touch." He closed the file. "Your theft began approximately 8 months ago, when Lily's condition worsened and required more expensive treatments. Hearing my life reduced to bullet points made me feel exposed, dissected. You've been thorough. I'm thorough about everything, Emily." The way he said my name, soft emphasis on the first syllable, sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. Especially people who interest me. And why do I interest you, besides my mechanical aptitude? Because despite opportunities to steal items of significant value, you've only ever taken enough to cover immediate needs. He tilted his head slightly. "You're not greedy. You're desperate. That's an important distinction in my line of work." "And what exactly is your line of work, Mr. Castellano?" I asked, though I was increasingly certain I already knew. "Officially, finance, real estate, import, export." His smile was sharp-edged. "Unofficially, I solve problems for people who can't solve them through conventional channels. I protect interests that require creative solutions." A crime boss. I was sitting across from a crime boss who'd researched my entire life, threatened me with prosecution, and now wanted to hire me. The surreality of the situation almost made me laugh. "What's the puzzle?" I asked instead. Approval flashed in his eyes at my direct approach. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket with an elegant flick of his fingers. "I'll show you." I followed him out of the office and down a private elevator that required both a key card and a numerical code to operate. We descended below the main lobby, the display showing B3 when the doors finally opened. The basement level was dramatically different from the polished corporate floors above. Exposed concrete, industrial lighting, and a noticeable drop in temperature. Our footsteps echoed as Alessio led me through a series of corridors that twisted and turned like a labyrinth. "The original bank vault is ahead," he explained, his voice bouncing off the hard surfaces around us. "But that's not what I'm interested in showing you." We reached a heavy steel door, guarded by 2 men, with the same military bearing as those in the lobby. They nodded respectfully to Alessio and stepped aside without a word. Beyond the door was an antechamber with another door, this one even more substantial, with an electronic keypad and what looked like a biometric scanner. The bank's original design included a series of private vaults for their most valued clients, Alessio said as he placed his palm on the scanner, accessible only with dual authentication, the client's key and the bank manager's override. The scanner glowed green, and he entered a code I couldn't see. The massive door unlocked with a series of heavy mechanical sounds. When I acquired the building, I maintained most of the original security features while adding modern upgrades. He pushed the door open, revealing a corridor lined with smaller vault doors, each bearing a number, old and new working in harmony. He led me to the end of the corridor, where the numbered vaults gave way to a single, larger door. Unlike the others, this one bore no electronic components, just an old-fashioned dial and what appeared to be a keyhole, though unlike any conventional lock I'd seen. "This," Alessio said, "was my father's private vault. When he died 3 years ago, he left instructions that it should remain sealed until certain conditions were met." I moved closer, examining the mechanism with growing fascination. What conditions? That's the problem. No one knows. He left a series of clues, each more obscure than the last. Alessio's voice held an edge I hadn't heard before. Frustration, perhaps, or something more personal. My father enjoyed games, particularly with those he considered worthy opponents. "And the key you showed me last night?" I asked, my fingers already tracing the unusual contours of the lock face. "Is one piece of the puzzle." He watched me with undisguised interest as I explored the mechanism. "The vault allegedly contains my inheritance. Not money or property, but something my father considered far more valuable." I knelt to get a better view of the lock, my mind already breaking down its components, analyzing the possible internal structure. "This isn't a standard bank lock, it's custom, handmade." "Yes. My father had it installed personally, against the advice of his security team." Alessio crouched beside me, his shoulder nearly touching mine. He said standard locks were for standard minds. The proximity was distracting, his cologne filling my senses, the heat of him palpable in the cool basement air. I forced myself to focus on the mechanism, not the man. "The keyhole has internal guides," I murmured, peering into the opening, "and there are at least 3 separate tumblers I can see, maybe more hidden deeper inside." "Can you open it?" The question was direct, tinged with something that might have been hope. I sat back on my heels, considering both the lock and the situation. Maybe. With time and the right tools, I turned to face him, suddenly aware of how close he was. "But I still don't understand why you're involving me. You have resources, connections. Why not bring in a professional safecracker?" "I have. 3 of them. None could make sense of my father's design." His eyes held mine, intense and unblinking, but they approached it as a security obstacle to overcome. "You approach it as a puzzle to understand. And if I solve your puzzle, what then?" Alessio stood, offering me a hand up. After a moment's hesitation, I took it, allowing him to pull me to my feet. He didn't immediately release my hand. "Then you prove my instincts about you correct," he said, his voice lower than before, "and I make you an offer that solves your financial concerns permanently." "I already have $10,000 in my bag," I reminded him, gently extracting my hand from his. That solves quite a few immediate problems. 10,000 is nothing. He dismissed the sum with a casual wave. What I'm offering is security, for you and for Lily. The best medical care, a comfortable home, a future without constant worry. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. In exchange for what? Your loyalty, your skills, your discretion. Each word landed with deliberate weight. I protect what's mine, Emily. Those under my care want for nothing. The implication was clear. He wasn't offering a job. He was offering incorporation into his world. His organization. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a complicated tangle of emotions. Wariness, certainly, but also curiosity. Maybe even temptation. I need time to think about it, I said finally. Of course. He guided me back toward the entrance with a light touch at the small of my back. Take all the time you need, but first, I'd like you to see something else. We retraced our steps through the vault corridor and back to the elevator. This time, Alessio pressed the button for the top floor. Where are we going? I asked as the elevator smoothly ascended. To give you context for your decision. His reflection in the mirrored wall watched me with unnerving intensity. And to meet someone important. Thank you for your approval. I'll now continue with Block 4, picking up exactly where we left off. Block 4. The elevator opened onto a floor that looked nothing like the corporate environment below. Instead of offices and conference rooms, we stepped into what appeared to be a luxury apartment. Open concept, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking panoramic view of the city. The space was minimalist but clearly expensive. Italian leather furniture, abstract art on the walls, a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a design magazine. But what caught my attention was the grand piano in the corner, and the young woman seated at it. She turned at the sound of our arrival, her fingers pausing on the keys. Her resemblance to Alessio was unmistakable. The same striking dark eyes, the same elegant bone structure. But where his features were sharp and commanding, hers were softened by youth and a gentle smile that transformed her face as she saw him. Papa, she said, rising from the bench. You're early. Papa. The word echoed in my mind, reshaping my understanding of the man beside me. Alessio Castellano wasn't just a crime boss or a businessman. He was a father. Sophia, he replied, his voice warming in a way I hadn't heard before. He crossed the room to embrace her, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. I wanted to introduce you to someone. She looked at me with open curiosity. Up close, I could see she was younger than I'd first thought. 17, maybe 18. There was an innocence about her that seemed at odds with everything I'd come to associate with the Castellano name. This is Emily Reynolds, Alessio said, a hand still resting protectively on his daughter's shoulder. She's consulting on a special project for me. The vault, Sophia said immediately, her eyes lighting with understanding. You think she can open it? Alessio smiled. Perhaps. Emily, this is my daughter, Sophia. I extended my hand, which she took with a surprisingly firm grip. It's nice to meet you. You too. She studied me with the same intensity her father had, but without the intimidating edge. Are you an engineer? Dad's had all kinds of specialists looking at grandfather's vault. I was studying engineering, I admitted. I never finished my degree. But she has a natural gift for mechanical systems, Alessio interjected. Sometimes formal education is less valuable than innate understanding. Sophia nodded thoughtfully. Like music. My teachers always said you can teach technique, but you can't teach feeling. Exactly like that, I agreed, surprised by the apt comparison. Sophia has been accepted to Juilliard, Alessio said, pride evident in his voice. She leaves for New York next month. That's impressive, I said, genuinely awed. Congratulations. A faint blush colored her cheeks. Thank you. I've wanted to go there since I was little. She turned to her father. Are you staying for lunch? Maria made that pasta you like. We'll join you shortly, Alessio replied. I need to show Emily something first. Sophia nodded, returning to the piano with a casual grace. As we moved toward a hallway on the other side of the apartment, the gentle notes of a Chopin nocturne followed us. Your daughter is talented, I said quietly. She's everything. The simple statement held more emotion than anything else I'd heard from him. Her mother died when she was 4. It's been just the two of us since then. The hallway opened onto what appeared to be a private office space, smaller and more intimate than the corporate office downstairs, but no less impressive. One wall was lined with photographs. Alessio guided me toward them. "Context," he said, gesturing to the images, "for the decision you're considering." The photos told a story. Alessio, through the years, from a young man standing beside an older gentleman who shared his features, to more recent images. Many featured Sophia at different ages, birthday parties, graduation ceremonies, piano recitals, a life documented in careful chronology. "Your father," I said, pointing to the older man in several of the earlier photographs. "Yes, Antonio Castellano." Alessio's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "A complicated man." I moved along the wall, studying the images. One in particular caught my eye. Alessio standing between two men in what looked like a hospital corridor, all three smiling despite the somber setting. "My cousin's cancer treatment," Alessio explained, following my gaze. "Terminal diagnosis, initially. The best specialists in the country gave him 6 months. He tapped the frame. That was 5 years ago. He's now in complete remission." I turned to face him, understanding dawning. "Because you found him better doctors, better treatment. Money opens doors that would otherwise remain closed," he said simply. "Especially in healthcare. Like the doors to experimental treatments for lupus," I said, the implication clear. "Precisely." His dark eyes held mine. "Your sister could have access to specialists, clinical trials, medications still in development, whatever she needs." The offer hung in the air between us, tempting and terrifying in equal measure. Lily had been deteriorating for months, her doctors increasingly running out of conventional options. "Why?" I asked, the question that had been burning in me since the diner. "Why me? Why this interest in my sister's health? What do you really want from me, Alessio?" Something flickered in his expression, surprise, perhaps, at my direct use of his name. He moved to a sleek desk by the window and opened a drawer, removing a small wooden box. "My father left a series of puzzles," he said, placing the box on the desk's surface. "The vault is merely the final one. Inside is supposedly my true inheritance. Not his money or his business empire, but something he valued more. And you think I can help you solve these puzzles?" "I know you can." He opened the box, revealing a collection of small objects. The golden key I'd examined the night before, several folded papers, what looked like a small mechanical device. "Because you think the way he did, you see systems, patterns, mechanisms. You understand the language of locks and puzzles." I approached the desk cautiously, drawn by curiosity despite my reservations. "What makes you so sure?" "Because I've watched you work." He selected one of the folded papers, opening it to reveal a series of complex diagrams. "The night you broke into my property on Oakwood Street, you spent 43 minutes examining the safe before attempting to open it, not trying combinations or using tools, just looking, understanding." I swallowed hard, uncomfortable with the reminder of my criminal activities. "That doesn't make me special. Any decent safecracker would do the same." "But you weren't trained as a safecracker." Alessio spread the diagrams across the desk. "You're self-taught, working from intuition and an innate understanding of mechanical systems, just as my father was." I leaned over the diagrams, my eyes automatically tracing the intricate designs. They appeared to be blueprints for a complex locking mechanism, layers of tumblers, counterweights, and trigger systems all working in concert. "These are beautiful," I murmured, forgetting for a moment who I was with and why. "My father designed security systems as a hobby," Alessio said, standing close beside me. "Before he built his empire, he was an engineer by training. It remained his passion throughout his life." I looked up, startled by this revelation. "Your father was an engineer?" "With a particular interest in mechanical security systems." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Now you understand my interest in you." The pieces clicked into place. Alessio hadn't sought me out because of my criminal activities. He'd recognized something in me that reminded him of his father, a shared way of seeing the world through its underlying systems and mechanisms. "The vault," I said slowly. "It's not just about what's inside. It's about proving you can solve his final puzzle." Something vulnerable flashed across his face. So briefly I might have imagined it. My father and I had a complicated relationship. He built an empire through force of will and ruthless determination. He expected the same from his son, but you wanted something different, I guessed. I wanted his respect. The admission seemed to cost him something. Even as I built upon what he created, expanded our legitimate businesses, modernized our operations, he always saw weakness in my methods. I returned my attention to the diagrams, giving him a moment of privacy as he composed himself. These look like preliminary designs, I said after a pause. Not the final vault mechanism. Correct. They're from his early work before he refined the system. Alessio carefully refolded the papers. The actual vault design exists nowhere on paper. He destroyed all documentation, ensuring that only someone who truly understood his mind could unlock it. And you think that person is me, not you. The realization was both flattering and uncomfortable. His own son. My father and I think very differently. His tone was carefully neutral, but I sensed old wounds beneath the words. Where he saw elegant mechanical solutions, I see efficient digital ones. Where he valued tradition, I embrace innovation. And yet you've preserved his vault exactly as he left it, I observed. You could have had it cut open, destroyed, but you didn't. Alessio's gaze moved to the photographs on the wall, lingering on one of the oldest, himself as a young boy, looking up at his father with unmistakable adoration. Some puzzles need to be solved, not broken, he said quietly. The moment felt unexpectedly intimate. A glimpse behind the powerful facade to the man underneath, still seeking his father's approval years after death. I looked away, uncomfortable with both his vulnerability and my growing sympathy for him. My eyes fell on a more recent photograph, Sophia at a piano recital, Alessio watching her from the audience, his expression one of pure pride. The contrast between that image and the calculating crime boss who'd threatened me with prosecution struck me forcefully. Your daughter, I said. Does she know about your unofficial business interests? His expression hardened. Sophia knows I'm a businessman with diverse investments. She has no knowledge of certain aspects of those investments, nor will she ever. His tone made it clear the subject was closed. She will attend Juilliard, pursue her music, and build a life untouched by the complications of my world. The piano music from the main room had stopped, and as if on cue, Sophia appeared in the doorway. "Lunch is ready," she announced, her gaze moving curiously between her father and me, perhaps sensing the tension. "Maria said to tell you it'll get cold if you don't come now." Alessio's expression softened immediately. "We'll be right there, Tesoro." When she disappeared back down the hallway, Alessio turned to me. "Join us for lunch. Afterward, if you're willing, I'd like you to examine the vault more thoroughly." It wasn't really a request, despite its phrasing, but I found I didn't mind. My curiosity about both the vault and the man before me had grown with each revelation. "All right," I agreed. "But I still need time to consider your offer." "Of course." He gestured toward the door. "Shall we?" Lunch was surreal, sitting at an elegant table with Alessio and Sofia Castellano, being served handmade pasta by a private chef. The conversation remained carefully normal, revolving around Sofia's music, her preparations for Juilliard, her excitement about New York. Watching them together, I saw a different side of Alessio, attentive, proud, protective. When Sophia spoke, he listened with complete focus, as if her thoughts on Debussy's preludes were the most important intelligence he'd received all day. After the meal, Sophia excused herself to practice, leaving Alessio and me alone once more. "She's remarkable," I said honestly. "She is her mother's daughter." A shadow passed over his features. "Talented, determined, and completely unaware of how cruel the world can be. You've sheltered her. I've protected her," he corrected. "There's a difference." As we rode the elevator back down to the vault level, I found myself thinking about protection. What it meant, what it cost, who deserved it. I'd spent years trying to protect Lily, making increasingly desperate choices as conventional options failed us. Alessio Castellano offered a different kind of protection, comprehensive, powerful, but at a price I wasn't sure I was willing to pay. The vault seemed different this time, less intimidating, more intriguing. I approached it with growing confidence, already seeing it as a puzzle rather than a barrier. "May I?" I asked, gesturing to the small toolkit one of Alessio's men had brought down at his request. He nodded, stepping back to give me space. Take whatever time you need. I lost myself in the examination, forgetting Alessio's presence as I explored the lock's mechanisms. Time slipped away as I measured, probed, and tested, occasionally making notes or sketching components in a small notebook. It's brilliant, I finally said, sitting back on my heels. The complexity is hidden within apparent simplicity. Multiple false starts, mechanical dead ends designed to frustrate systematic approaches. Can you open it? Alessio asked. The same question he'd posed earlier, but now with an edge of genuine hope. I stood, brushing dust from my knees. I think so. But not today. I need to create some custom tools. Work through some of the sequential steps more carefully. How long? A week. Maybe less. I met his gaze directly. Assuming I decide to help you. His lips curved into a slight smile. And what factors will influence that decision? My sister's health, my future, the legal implications of my past activities. I paused. And understanding exactly what I'd be getting involved with, Alessio considered me for a long moment. Come back to my office. I think it's time we discuss terms more specifically. Back in Alessio's office, the city lights had begun to glimmer as afternoon faded toward evening. He gestured for me to take a seat across from him, then moved to a cabinet and retrieved 2 glasses and a crystal decanter. May I offer you a drink? He asked, his tone more casual than before, as if our shared meal with Sophia had shifted something between us. Just water, please, I replied, watching as he poured amber liquid into one glass and water into another. He handed me the water before settling into his chair, studying me over the rim of his glass. You're at a crossroads, Emily. I understand the weight of the decision before you. Do you? I raised an eyebrow. I doubt you've ever been in a position where accepting help meant compromising everything you believed about yourself. To my surprise, a genuine smile curved his lips. You'd be wrong about that. My father made similar offers to me when I was younger than you are now. This revelation caught me off guard. I thought you inherited his business. I inherited a legacy, he corrected, swirling the liquid in his glass. But before that, I had choices. Harvard Business School had accepted me. I wanted to become a legitimate businessman, build something of my own. What happened? His expression darkened. My mother died. Suddenly, unexpectedly. My father was destroyed by it. He needed me to step in, to learn the family business, so I did. I absorbed this, seeing parallels to my own life, education interrupted by family tragedy, dreams deferred by responsibility. The difference, he continued, is that I eventually embraced my path, found ways to honor both my father's legacy and my own vision. He leaned forward slightly. That's what I'm offering you, Emily, not just protection or financial security, but a path that honors your abilities. By working for a criminal organization, I said bluntly. By working for me, he countered smoothly. Castellano Holdings has many legitimate business interests: real estate, import, export, technology investment. Your skills would be valuable in numerous capacities. And the illegitimate interests? He didn't flinch at the direct question. Would remain separate from your involvement. I'm not asking you to become a criminal, Emily. I'm offering you a way out of the criminal activities your circumstances have driven you to. The irony wasn't lost on me, so I stopped breaking into places for small amounts of cash and start working for the man whose organization controls most of the city's underground economy. That's your definition of going straight? My definition of going straight is using your exceptional talents for something more meaningful than survival. His tone remained even, but his eyes had intensified, and ensuring your sister receives the medical care she desperately needs. Lily. Everything always came back to Lily. Her face floated in my mind, growing thinner each month, dark circles deepening beneath her eyes as the disease progressed. What exactly would my role be? I asked, the question itself an admission that I was considering his offer. Alessio's expression shifted subtly. Not quite triumph, but satisfaction. Initially, opening my father's vault. After that, security consultation for our various properties and businesses. Assessment of mechanical and electronic systems. identification of vulnerabilities, recommendations for improvements. And if I refuse? Then you walk away with the $10,000 already in your possession, and we never speak again. His tone was matter of fact. The police will not learn of your activities from me. I respect your choice either way. I studied him, trying to determine if he was being truthful. Just like that? No threats? No consequences? I prefer willing partners to coerced ones, he said simply. Fear produces compliance, but never loyalty or excellence. The afternoon light caught the amber in his glass, the same rich color as the flecks in his dark eyes. I found myself believing him, despite every instinct warning me about the danger of trust. I need to talk to my sister, I said finally. This affects her too. Of course. He nodded, setting down his glass. Take whatever time you need. When you've made your decision, you know where to find me. I rose to leave, but hesitated. The vault. Whatever's inside, what do you think it is? A shadow crossed his face. My father was a complicated man. It could be anything from company secrets to a final test of worthiness. He paused. Or perhaps just an empty space. His last joke at my expense. The vulnerability in that admission stayed with me as I left the building, hailing a taxi to take me to Lily's small apartment across town. My sister opened the door looking worse than when I'd seen her 3 days ago. Paler, thinner, her movements careful as if every joint ached, but her smile when she saw me was genuine, lighting her face with a ghost of her former vitality. Em. She embraced me gently. This is a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting you until the weekend. Her apartment was small but meticulously organized, a necessity when chronic illness made energy a precious commodity. I followed her to the living room, where she eased herself onto the couch. I need to talk to you about something, I began, perching beside her. Something important. Her expression grew serious. That sounds ominous. What's going on? I hesitated, unsure how to explain my situation without revealing the illegal activities that had led to it. Lily knew I struggled financially, but believed my income came solely from waitressing and odd jobs. I've been offered a job, I said finally. A real one, using my engineering background. Security consultation for a large company. Her face brightened. Em, that's wonderful. Why do you look so worried? This is what you've wanted, to use your education again. It's complicated. I twisted my fingers together. The owner of the company, he's not exactly conventional. His business interests are diverse, and some of them might operate in gray areas. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You mean he's connected? Like, organized crime connected? I winced at her directness. Possibly. Yes. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. And he's offering you what, exactly? A legitimate job. Good salary, benefits, I met her eyes. And access to experimental treatments for lupus. The kind insurance won't cover, the kind that might actually make a difference. Her breath caught. For me? Yes. She leaned back against the cushions, her expression unreadable. So this man is offering you a job and promising cutting-edge medical treatment for your chronically ill sister. And in return, you do what? Help him with his security? It's more specific than that, I explained. He has this vault that belonged to his father. No one's been able to open it. He thinks I can. A small, incredulous laugh escaped her. Of course, my sister the safecracker. At my startled expression, she shook her head. Em, I'm not stupid. Those odd jobs that mysteriously pay so well? The nights you come home with cash you can't explain? I've known something was going on. Shame burned in my chest. Lily, Don't. She reached for my hand. Don't apologize for doing whatever you had to do to keep us afloat. I never asked because I didn't want to put you in the position of having to lie to me. Her fingers tightened around mine. But this is different. This is a life choice, not a desperate measure. I swallowed hard. What do you think I should do? I think, she said carefully, that you shouldn't make decisions about your life based on my illness. I've watched you sacrifice everything. Your education, your dreams, your integrity, trying to save me. It has to stop. I can't just let you suffer when there might be treatments that could help. I protested. And I can't let you sell your soul to the mob because of me. Her voice was gentle but firm. Whatever this man is offering, there will be strings attached. There always are. I thought of Alessio, of the complexity beneath his controlled exterior, of his daughter at the piano, his pride as he spoke of her future, of the vault that contained not riches, but something he seemed to both crave and fear. I think it's more complicated than that, I said slowly. He's not what I expected. Lily's eyebrows rose. Oh. He has a daughter. She's going to Juilliard next month. He keeps her completely separate from his business interests. I found myself defending him, surprising even myself. He offered me the money and said I could walk away. No consequences if that's what I chose. And you believe him? Strangely, yes. I met her questioning gaze. I think he respects boundaries and choices. He had one with his own father, apparently. Lily studied me for a long moment. You like him, she said finally. Not a question, but an observation. I don't know him, I protested. But you want to. A small, knowing smile played at her lips. I haven't seen that look on your face since your TA in differential equations. Heat rushed to my cheeks. It's not like that. Maybe not yet. She squeezed my hand. Just be careful, Em. Not just of him, but of yourself. You've spent so long taking care of me. You've forgotten how to want things for yourself. Her words struck deeper than she could know. Had I been drawn to Alessio's offer solely because of Lily's needs? Or was there something more? A craving for challenge, for recognition of my abilities, for connection with someone who saw me, really saw me. Whatever you decide, Lily continued, make sure it's what you want, not just what you think I need. The next morning dawned clear and bright, my decision crystallizing with the rising sun. I dressed with care in the same outfit I'd worn to meet Alessio the first time, a small act of symmetry that felt important somehow. The security guards at his building now recognized me, nodding as I passed through to the private elevator. My heart raced as I ascended to the top floor, where I knew Alessio would be, not in his corporate office, but in the private space near his daughter's apartment. He was waiting by the windows when I arrived, as if he'd known exactly when I would come. Perhaps he had. Nothing about Alessio Castellano's information network would surprise me now. Emily, he said, turning to face me, you've made your decision. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes. He gestured to the seating area, but I remained standing, needing the steadiness of my own 2 feet for what I was about to say. I'll open your father's vault, I began, watching his expression carefully. And after that, I'll consider your job offer on a project-by-project basis. But I have conditions. His eyebrows rose slightly, but he nodded for me to continue. First, my work remains strictly legal. Security consultation, mechanical problem-solving, nothing that crosses ethical lines. I took a deep breath. Second, Lily receives the medical treatment she needs, regardless of whether I stay with your organization long-term. And third, he prompted, seeming to sense I wasn't finished. Third, we maintain professional boundaries. I met his gaze directly. Whatever this is between us, this recognition, this connection, we address it openly after the vault is opened, not before. I need clarity to work, and feelings complicate everything. For a moment he said nothing, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, a genuine smile spread across his face. Not the calculated one I'd seen before, but something warmer, reaching his eyes. Your terms are acceptable, he said, extending his hand. Shall we begin? I took his hand, feeling the warmth of his palm against mine, the future opening before us like a lock yielding to the perfect key. Yes, I said, let's solve this puzzle.